So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Today is part 2 of Bash. This is your second lecture on Bash and also your final lecture on Bash. The slides still make me feel pain, and so I'll have to keep making that not glitch out. Today we're going to learn about some more Bash commands that are going to allow you to do a ton of cool stuff. Sudo, echo, find, grep, SSH, diff, and some logical operators. Yeah, it is fast. We'll move into Git, and then you guys are going to be using Bash and Git for your projects the entire time. For text editors in Bash, I'll teach you about Vim and Emacs and Nano and the difference between them, how to use them. We'll talk a little bit about aliasing in Bash, and then that'll lead us into Bash scripting. We'll talk some more about Bash scripting and things you can do in Bash scripts and kind of how to use them effectively much later in this semester when we're talking about virtual environments in Python, because that actually connects very nicely, but that won't be until many weeks from now. Actually, not too many, probably like 3 weeks from now. So before we start, let's go through a little bit of a checklist. Is everyone watching this, either live or recorded, in the Discord? Is your name in the correct format? Name, net ID, like I and most other people have it. This is required for how our bot takes live attendance. So if it's not in that format, make sure it's in that format, or else you will not get attendance. Um, did you fill out the project interest form in announcements? It's due this Friday. It is required. It is not optional. So please make sure to do that. And then finally, do know about social hours. After lecture today, we're hosting our very first social hours. Social hours are something that we started last semester because we kind of found the opportunity that a lot of students in this class wanted to kind of hang out in a less formal environment. In this case, after lecture, in that we play games, talk, whatnot. The bot's chilling. As long as you have your net ID in parentheses, you'll be fine. And then the first part is just kind of for your PM to know what to address you as. Good question, Ben. About the project interest form, when we pick our choices, do we only pick 4 choices or do we rank all the options? Only pick 4, please. But, if you put more information, actually, I'll just ignore any other information you put on there. Can I join social hours late? Absolutely. We'll all be in the Discord. If you see people in here hanging, then come join. I'm not certain how long they'll last. Last semester, they lasted many hours, like sometimes 7. We do not necessarily want people staying up until 2 a.m., or at least we won't. You can do it if you want, but we're not going to make you or make you feel obligated to. And so we will see how that goes here. We're not setting a time limit to it. We'll just play it by ear. Okay, so let's get started with actual lecture. We're going to be learning a lot of Bash commands today. What goes on in social hours? That's a great question for Daniel to answer. So ping Daniel. Talked earlier, Daniel Moon. He's the one of our social leads. Yeah, that's Quinn. Okay, so let's talk about sudo. They mentioned how you were behind me. Let's talk about sudo. Sudo stands for super user do, and what it does is it's going to give root privileges to whatever command you run next. And so it is kind of it takes the arguments, how we were talking about before, whatever comes after the command is an argument, of other commands really. And what it allows you to do is kind of, as the thing says, run something as a super user. And so previously we talked a little bit about RM. And do you guys remember the really dangerous command in RM? Or at least the dangerous flags to run in RM? Yeah, close. Yeah, RM, RF, exactly. So that will clear everything, and it won't ask. There's actually a little bit of a caveat to that. If you try to do that to your C drive, it'll stop. It'll yell at you and say you don't have permissions to delete system folders. If you sudo rmrf, it won't stop. And so this is truly how you can brick your computer and make it not work anymore. So please be careful with sudo. As we say here, be careful with sudo. You can really do anything with it. That being said, you'll probably use sudo a lot, so don't be like too scared to use it on like simple stuff. Like something I do often is I'll sudo open a file with a text editor. That just to make sure that I have the permissions to edit it. Are the questions for lecture attendance asked here? They're asked in the poll bot channel. We'll talk a little bit about that when it comes, but they are asked in the Discord. You'll see how it works. I'll go over it again. And then I have some nice memes for you guys. Bernie runs command with sudo. 15 minutes later, runs another command. I'm once again asking for your password. I'm by no means the one who made this, but brings a little light to the lecture. And so at this point, you may be thinking, so if we do pollbot, we don't have, correct, you don't have to prairie learn attendance if you do pollbot. At this point, you're thinking, man, I'm so excited. I'm going to log on to the university network and sudo rmrf everybody's things. Well, it's not quite that easy. Not everyone has sudo permission. And so if you don't, it'll say, your user is not in the sudoers file. This incident will be reported. Don't worry too much about that. No one's gonna come get you. But you might be put on the naughty list. Are they graded on accuracy? No. I don't believe, but you do want them to be accurate because sometimes we take them as chances to do extra credit. Okay, let's talk about our next one, Echo. If you guys we made you use this in the homework because we wanted you to kind of use the tool or to learn how to find these on your own. And so a little bit shame on us, but also it was on purpose. So Echo is a pretty simple one. It allows you to print things into the bash command. Whatever you tell it, whatever commands you tell it or whatever parameter you give it will be printed into the bash terminal. And so if you say echo hello world, it will print hello world into your terminal. It's as simple as that. It's similar in a way to doing cat on a file that contains whatever you tell it. When I did that homework, I was so worried I was overlooking something. Nope. Yep. We did that to make you guys search for it. A huge tool in this class is going to be us teaching you to teach yourself things. So be ready for that stuff. Let's talk next about find. Find is a great tool to locate files. Find is when I say it's a great tool, like actually I use find very often to find stuff. It is a super great tool and I encourage you to do it. If you do find dot, it will print all of the files in the current and subdirectories. Why is it not grabbing my shell? I just noticed. This is interesting. Okay, here we go. There we go. And here we go. So again, I'll cd into our intro to bash folder that we were doing before, and I'll run find dot. And we can see it prints all of this. The hidden files, the directories, the subdirectories, the files in the subdirectories, everything we need. Great. So find is a way to kind of find files, and you can give it flags. And so if you want to find files that fit a certain format, you can use this name flag. And in the name flag, you can use this thing called a star wildcard. The star wildcard is something that you guys are going to use a lot in terms of CS196 and programming in general. What it does is it represents kind of any number of any letters, right? And so if you're not really sure what's there, but you want to find, say, in this example, all text files, you can do star.txt. And what that's saying is any number of letters before .txt. So what we'll do here is we'll do find star.txt. Or sorry, we'll find in this current directory, and we'll pass the name flag, and then we'll do star.txt. And we can see all of the files here that end in .txt are printed afterwards. Additionally, you can, say if you want anything that starts with 196, you can use 196 star.txt, and it all works there. You're not showing my, oh, good catch. Thank you. Sorry. So if you look here, we can say find current directory. We use the name flag star.txt, and it returns all of the files here that end in .txt. Good catch. Thank you. Using the iname, just makes it case insensitive. And so maybe, if you wanted to find all files that had, a certain word in it that starts with a certain word that's case insensitive. Additionally, you can give it the delete flag that I'm not going to test because I don't want to delete those files. If you pass the delete flag, then all the files that it finds are going to be deleted. It's as simple as that. And so maybe you want to delete all temporary files, and so you can do star.tmp and delete all of those. I'm not going to delete those files. We may still use them in the future. For the content, no. Great. So find is a great tool to kind of find and clean files pretty easily. There's a ton of other useful flags to it, so I encourage you guys, if you are going to be using find a lot, which you probably will, to look into some of those and kind of learn them passively. Next, we're going to be talking about Grep. Grep is one of those tools that's super, super useful, but also, I would say, a little bit harder to learn all of the content of. There are so many flags and stuff for Grep that it's kind of impossible to learn them all. So we're going to be learning some basic ones, and from there, we'll kind of show how it's used. So at its heart, what Grep does is it searches for text and returns lines that match. And so it prints out those lines afterwards. So if I have a file that has, let's say, the names of everyone in the class, and I want to print out all of the names that have an E in it, I could say grep E and then give it, let's say, names.txt, right? And all of the names that have an E in it will get printed. If you want to only print names that have let's say, that are only an E and not just have an E in it, you can use the W flag. And so the W flag only returns exact matches. Would E star work? E star, let's think what that would do. E star would actually function, I believe, the same if it doesn't throw an error, the same as E. Because what you're basically saying is E and then any characters now, if you do E star with the W flag, then you're looking for anything that starts with an E and has characters afterwards. So Eustis would match because Eustis matches the E star format, right? What would not match is Woostis, for example. Does it return matches across the entire system or just in whatever directory? So you let's remember that you give grep a file. So you give it a file, not an entire directory. Good question. Great. So if you want a grep, you do grep search text file to search. And then if you want only exact matches, you use the W flag. The C flag is something that's very useful. Let's say instead of printing out all of the names that have an E in them, we only want to count all the names that have an E in them. And so, if this is a huge, huge list, then we can instead do grep-c search text file to search. This is a really useful tool if you're trying to do like really fast basic analytics on files. So maybe um, if you just want to see like how many lines of code a certain file has, you can do grep c star, match everything, and then search a file, and it'll tell you how many lines that has. So that's an easy tool right there, for example. But there's a ton of use cases for this. The I flag makes the search case insensitive. So if a file has Eustis and Eustis on two separate lines, it'll only return the first, but if we use the I flag, it'll return both. So we could do grep I Eustis names.txt, and it'll match times when it's, uppercase Eustis, lowercase Eustis, any of that. Additionally, with grep, as well as pretty much every other command, you can stack flags on top of each other. So if we do grep-wi, it'll do a case-insensitive exact search. And so what would that do is we'll only get returned lines that have kind of the variation of Eustis in caps, and then we won't get stuff like Eustis, William. Is there not a way to search a directory in this way? Like, what else would be this used for? Tons of stuff. I mean, like, really, truly, grep can be used. It is a way of searching a text file in a certain way. And so it's kind of hard to say, like, what else it would be used for because people search text files all the time for infinitely different reasons. You can search a directory if you did something like find and then piped the result in find into a grep command, right? Yeah, again, you probably can search an image file. I'm not totally sure what you'd get. Maybe if you were doing like a cybersecurity, like a flag finding thing, you could grep an image file to see if they've tried to, encode the flag in the image somewhere. The next one we'll talk about is diff. As the name suggests, it stands for difference. It compares two files line by line and identifies the lines where they differ. And so if you say diff file 1, file 2, and then press enter, you can see the differences between the two files. And those will get printed out in the terminal. And so we'll test this out real quick. I'll share my screen. We'll move into directory 1, directory 2. We'll ls. We can see file.dir.txt, and we'll just print that out. We can see myfile.txt. Myfile.txt, if you remember, stored the results of the ls last time. And so what we'll do is we will do diff myfile.txt file in dir.txt. And we can see, this file has these 8 lines, this one has this line. There's really no similarities behind them. Now, if we do the same file twice, nothing is printed because there's no difference between a file and itself. Diff is a good tool, just for a lot of stuff. You guys are going to be learning about Git in the next couple lectures. Kind of the core idea of Git is using this diff tool, and so it can be very useful in that sense. Now we're going to be learning about some logical operators. These aren't kind of the things that you normally see when you're coding. These aren't like you're necessarily doing logic comparisons, but they do have use in the logic space anyway. And so the first one we'll learn about is double ampersand or and. And so what this does is it allows you to chain commands sequentially. And it will continue down the chain until something fails, essentially. And so what you do is you type command and then and command and command as long as you want to go. And so if we do mkdir directory 3 and cd directory 3 and touch new file.txt and cd dot dot, it will first make a directory called directory 3, and as long as that succeeds, it will move into the directory called directory 3. Then that should succeed because we either just made it or the first thing failed. Then we will create a text file called new file.txt, and as long as that succeeds, we'll move back into the original directory. One thing to be a little bit careful of is these aren't, so if you chain these together in something that is maybe very complicated and you really don't want to stop halfway, and something fails in the middle, it won't undo the stuff that it did previously. And so for this example, if the touch failed somehow, then it's not going to unmake this directory. And so just be wary of that. If you have these really long ones and have the chance of failing in the middle, then it can be sometimes messy. So you might say, how do we handle it if it fails? Will it return where it failed? I'm not sure what you mean by return. It'll just stop doing anything. If you do expect things to fail, or at least need to handle things that fail, you can use the double pipe operator. And so what this does is it tries the first command, and if the first command fails, it'll do the second command, basically, right? And so our example here is we'll try to cd into a fake directory. No, it will not. But if you build it in such a way with these pipes, then you can kind of figure out where it failed, either because you can handle it right then because you know where it failed, or you can, I guess, just like print out where it failed. So in this situation, we'll cd into a fake directory, and then we'll echo that that directory doesn't exist. Well, in this situation, it will echo since we know that the first command is going to fail. You can chain these together. And so what we can do is we can try to cd into a fake directory and then echo moved into a fake directory. And if this entire thing fails, or if something in this entire thing fails, then we'll echo that there's no directory. And so you can get really complex with pairing these double ampersands and pipes up. You can have these really complicated lines that set up your entire development environment for you, have error handling, all sorts of stuff. It's very helpful for automating things. Let's talk next about SSH. SSH is a very useful tool that allows you to log into a remote machine and do operations on that machine. What is the sequence of operation? I'm sequential, I guess. I'm not totally sure what you mean by that. There's ways to do yeah, left to right. That's correct. So secure shell, if you guys remember, this thing that we're working in is called the shell. The SSH is a way to kind of work in the shell remotely on a different machine. And so how SSH works is you'll do SSH username at host URL, and you'll be prompted to log in to that computer with the username. If the password's correct, then you are working in a shell on another computer. If you want to drop the username, your local username is passed along. A real world example of this. Sorry about that, my headset died. Or didn't die, but turned off. A real world example of this is UIUC provides us with EWS machines. Is it back? Let me just double check that it's back. Yeah, it's back. I see it moving. EWS stands for Engineering Workstations. You guys are going to be using this probably for the rest of the entire life at UIUC. They're super useful. A lot of classes require your code to run on the machines. And so what do you do if you're too lazy to go to Siebel, or in my case, I guess abroad? You use SSH. And so the university has this entire system online where you can SSH into your machine. I believe it's, for me, its username is Eustis too, my net ID, and then host URL would be EWS dot. Oh man, I can't remember it off the top of my head. I always just copy paste it. What is it? Welby, do you know? EWS, yeah, tons of EWS. What's the password? Not going to tell you. Good, nice try. So let's do a quick summary of what we've learned. Sudo. What does sudo do? It's super user do, and so it allows you to do any command kind of without worrying about permissions to do that command. If you have the sudo password, or if you're in the sudoers file, yeah, you just use your UIUC login. So the thing with your net ID. Good question. And in the other case, if you're SSHing into a different machine, you'd use whatever password is appropriate for that. Echo prints things back into the. What happened? Is my headset dead again? Test? That's funny. My camera's gone. That's fine. I can go to the bad camera. Hello. It's not perfect, but it'll have to do. Sorry about that. Yeah, lots of technical difficulties. I just moved into here, so there's tons of stuff. My face is so cropped. Um, anyway, so quick summary of what we've learned: sudo echo, as well as find. We've learned the name, iname, and delete um, flags for find. Um, yeah, this is probably memeable. The name tag, you guys are catching me off guard. The name tag will only match files that meet a certain format, so like star.txt. The iname does the same thing, but is case insensitive, hence the I. The delete will delete all of the files that it matches. For grep, we learned about the W, I, and C flags. Let's go back to that. I don't want to get these wrong. I don't want to get them confused. So the W flag returns only exact matches. The I flag is going to do case insensitive, I for insensitive, and then the C flag counts the matching lines, of course. I really don't want to mess this up. The diff compares two files and prints out the differences between those two files. SSH, again, is this great tool to do secure shell, so using someone else's shell remotely on a different computer, which is useful for a variety of reasons. Maybe that computer is more powerful than yours for some reason. And then we also learned about the logical operators and double pipe. Yeah, again, this might happen. Let me check the Twitch inspector. Yeah, we've actually been doing pretty well overall, but it is doing a little bit less well right now. So, can anyone tell me what the and double pipe symbols do? This is not lecture credit, but this is you telling me what things do. It's definitely my end, Eric. Don't worry. Chains commands together. In what way? And will perform a command after the first. And what does double pipe do? Double pipe, if one command fails, the other command will run. Exactly. Yeah. Great work. And so these are super, super useful tools if you're doing, all sorts of stuff. I'd give more concrete examples, but there's just infinite. It's kind of hard to find an example because there's so many things that you use these for. These are really the tools of almost everything. So let's talk a little bit about text editors. And so you guys probably right now are using a text editor like VS Code or PyCharm or things like that, or something like Notepad. There are also text editors in your shell, and so you can use those. And so we use these things called text editors in your shell. And so they're a little bit different than your classic one because they're a little bit more, I'll say, utility focused. But there's a little bit of an initial learning curve, and then you can do tons of stuff that you won't be able to do in other text editors. And so if you become a master at these text editors, you actually can work much faster than a lot of other people. Yes, can't exit Vim. Hopefully by the end of this lecture, you'll know exactly how to exit Vim all of the time. The most popular text editors are Vim and Emacs. People are a little bit belligerent between the two, saying that theirs is the best. I'll go over my unpopular opinion in a second. We'll also cover Nano, which isn't quite as popular or powerful as the other two, but is, I'll say, easier to start working in. And so this is a nice XKCD meme about the three. So Vim, usable in anything, does text editing really well. Emacs can do literally anything. There's so many things that you can do in Emacs. Also, unfortunately, there's infinite things you can do in Emacs. So sometimes you have to start memorizing those or learning them. And then Nano is Nano. I'll talk a little bit about my unpopular opinion now, which is again, it super does not matter which one of these you use. I personally actually use Nano, and the reason for that is if I'm editing in my console, then I'm probably doing something very fast and easy. If I'm doing real text editing that would, justify using Vim or Emacs, then I'll use a real text editor like VS Code, where I can have wonderful tools like multiple cursors. That being said, if I get really good at Vim or Emacs, it's probably worth it to it's probably worth it to learn those things, and I do believe they have support for more advanced stuff like multiple cursors. I do. Well, Tim, you're not going to like lecture in a couple minutes. We teach WQ, so let's talk first about Vim. Vim is a popular terminal editor released in 1991. If you want to use Vim, you simply say Vim, and then you say the file name that you would like to edit. The big picture of Vim that I want to introduce to you guys before we get into the nitty gritty is that there's two modes. There's command mode, which allows you to move your cursor, and there's insert mode, which allows you to type, essentially. You move between these modes using either escape to go into the command mode or I to go into the insert mode. There's a ton of things you can do in command mode. Insert mode is basically just typing, though that might be not totally true. So let's talk a little bit about what happens in the command mode. So when you're in the command mode, you don't have a thing at the bottom of the window, which is a way to tell. Also, you aren't able to type, which is a great way to tell as well. There's tons of keys, and you guys do not need to memorize these. If you plan on using Vim, I suggest that you do learn them, because this is why people use Vim, is because there's shortcuts like this. You have H, J, K, and L, which move you left, down, up, and right. You can also use left, down, up, and right, I believe. The $sign will move your cursor to the end of the line, while underscore will move your cursor to the beginning of the line. W and B allow you to move your cursor forward and backward one word, just using space as a separator. If you do backslash some word, it will move your cursor to the next occurrence, forward slash some word. It'll move your cursor to the next occurrence of that word. If you type some number and then GG, it will move your cursor to the start of the number line. And so if I do, say, 1 GG, it'll take me to the first line. If I do 50 GG, it'll take me to the 50th line, or I guess the last if there's not 50 lines. DD deletes the line that the cursor is on, and then U undoes. So you can do tons of really quick and fast editing and cursor moving with this. So it's very useful. And then kind of the magic of Vim is you can so quickly move between command mode and insert mode that you can delete this word, delete this line, move to this word, change this variable to this, and it's actually very fast. Again, if you want to move into insert mode, you press I. Then you can type into the file and edit things. If you would like to leave insert mode, you can press escape. And so you guys may have seen the joke that Welby posted earlier about people not being able to leave Vim. Well, this is how you leave Vim. First, you have to be in command mode. Why isn't it the insert key? Insert key is far away. Also, I don't actually believe that all keyboards have an insert key if they're like 10 keyless or something. Well, maybe not TKL, but like 65% and 70%. Good question. If you want to exit Vim, the first step is to go into the command mode. Bonus points in chat if you can tell me how to go into the command mode if you are in the insert mode right now. Oh, it's on screen. Shoot. I foresaw this already. So you can press escape to get into the command mode. Then you type :Q to quit, :Q exclamation point to quit without saving, and then :WQ to write and then quit. Yeah, escape, 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 escape. It's on the screen, so you guys don't actually get bonus points for this one. Um, but good work nonetheless. Let's talk next about Emacs. Emacs is, again, kind of the Swiss Army knife of text editors. You can do a lot of things in Emacs. It's similar to Vim, but does not have necessarily the modes. If you want to use Emacs, you simply say Emacs file name, like pretty much every other text editor. The big idea of Emacs is that you have these things called, yeah, write means save, that's correct. You have these things called command keys, and you have two command keys. What does write and quit mean? Write means save the file, save your edits, and then quit means close the file. Um, so you have these things called command keys. First, you have control, which is often abbreviated as C. This is the control key. So if you hold control, you're holding the C command key. Second, we have the meta key. The meta key is either escape or alt, depending on how you set up Emacs. Either way, you can change it if it's one and not the other, and you want it to be one. I probably suggest alt. I feel like escape is a little bit far away. And then the big thing about Emacs is that there's key bindings, and there's a ton of key bindings, like seriously, a huge amount. I don't expect you to memorize all of them. I doubt anybody knows all of them except for maybe maintainers of Emacs. But if you use Emacs, the key to speed up your workflow is memorizing useful keybinds. And so we'll talk about some of these basic keybinds. And so first we'll talk about keybinds with control. And so if you do control A or control E, you'll move to the beginning or the end of a line. If you do control V, you will move down one page, a page being how much text is currently displayed. Control underscore undoes changes, and control H brings up a help page. Now, if you hold the meta key, again, the meta key is either alt or escape. You can change which one it is. Which one it is by default just depends on how you set up Emacs. You can do meta or MF or MB, which move you forward and backward by one word, MA or ME, which move you to the start or end of a sentence, and then M forward and forward caret. That's not a caret. Caret is necessarily up, I believe. I'm not actually sure the term for these. I usually just call them greater than and less than. So we'll say M greater than moves you to the end of a file, M less than moves you to the start of a file. It is meta, I know. And so if you choose to use Emacs, which again, super useful, it's probably the most powerful out of these three, but also maybe the most to learn. Alligator, ooh, that's good. Um, you will often be using the Emacs documentation, and I want to just introduce you to the way that they write these things because you'll need to know. And so if you see something like C-A, it means press Control and A simultaneously. So hold Control, press A essentially for that, right? If you see C space A, it means press C, Control, release, and then press the letter A. So press Control and then press A. Right. Same thing with M. Again, we abbreviate the meta key as M, so M-A means hold Alt and then press A. Bonus points if you can tell me what C-A does. So let's talk about saving and exiting files. This is kind of the most agreed upon way to save and exit files, CXS and CXCC. So can anyone tell me what CXS would do? So what do you actually need to do that using kind of this format that we learned here before? So what do you need to press to do CXS? Control and X at the same time, release then S. Exactly. So you do Control X, stop, and then press S, and that will save a file, right? Save your edits. And then for exiting, you do Control X, and then you do Control C. And this seems like it's maybe necessarily a slow thing because I don't know, it always looks to me like it's clunky, but actually do this. Do Control X, release Control C. It's super fast. I mean, it's incredibly fast, and you don't even have to let go of Control, I think, for this matter. Well, maybe you do. I'm not actually sure. I don't use Emacs, so I'm not sure if CXCC is the same as CX-C. Yeah, as you might be able to tell with Matt in chat, people are passionate about the text editors that they use. Because Emacs is kind of so versatile in the things that it can do, it is fully Turing complete, and you can play games in it. There's Tetris for Emacs. There's looks like I can't tell if that's Connect 4 or Go. Oh, it's Go. So yeah, tons of stuff. The next one we'll talk about is Nano. Nano is released in 2000. It's the newest of them all. I'm certain there's newer ones. It has the smallest learning curve out of all of the ones. And if you want to use it, you simply type Nano file name. Um, that's pretty much it. All of the commands you need for Nano are listed at the bottom of the screen. There's like 8 or 10. There's more, but the important ones are at the bottom of the screen. Nano doesn't have fancy shortcuts. It doesn't have crazy ways to move your cursor around at a million miles an hour and edit 4 files at once or whatever. Um, but it's quick and it's easy and it's half a kilobyte, or half a megabyte, 500 kilobytes. Fun fact. So especially on like you guys may know my specialties kind of like in smaller IoT devices. Nano's kind of the go-to because it's very small and yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's like 480 actually, kilobytes. So, quick summary: Vim versus Emacs versus Nano. Again, Vim and Emacs being kind of these more powerful tools, I'll say, and then Nano being this really lightweight, easier, I'll say, quote unquote one. A lot of people are saying Nano is the best. Nano is not necessarily the best. The popular opinion is that they're not the best. I would probably agree with that. It is probably worth my and your time to learn Vim and Emacs, but I'm lazy, and yeah. Oh, really, Matt? That's interesting. That's interesting. But no, again, it totally depends how you want to do it. There's no wrong answer to this. Yeah, it just totally depends. For Vim, the big picture is command versus insert mode. Bonus points to anyone who can tell me how to go from command to insert and vice versa. For Emacs, it's the meta and the control keys. And then for Nano, everything's on your screen. So just type Nano. Great. So we'll move ahead. I and escape, exactly. Escape and I and escape. Wonderful. Yeah. So if you want to go into insert mode, it's I. If you want to go from insert to command, it's escape. Great, 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 great. Thank you all. Thank you all. This is wonderful. I love participation. So let's talk a little bit more about some useful kind of tools for when you're doing bash scripting. And so the first thing we'll talk about is aliasing. And so what aliasing does is you can say alias shortcut name equals full command. And so what this allows us to do is have a big, long, maybe process condensed into a much smaller example, I'll say, right? And so maybe I want to say alias setup equals all of this stuff that sets up my real world application. So it runs my server, it starts my database, it sets my environment variables, all of this stuff. Well, then instead of running, Node app this and Python this and, whatever, I can just run setup and it'll do all of that for me. Now, the next question becomes like, okay, that's great, but once I close my terminal, the alias is kind of no longer set. So how do we maybe do that without typing out the alias each and every time or copy and pasting it? Um, alias sudo to please for much more wholesome. That's funny. Yeah. So instead of sudo, you can call it please. That's very nice. Please rmrf. Please don't rmrf. Um, so we'll talk a little bit about bash scripting now, and we should be good on time, so I'm excited to talk about this. So you can write bash scripts to run commands for you, and these can even take input wonderfully. So bash scripts can be run using the dot. Oh, oh, oh. Right when I was on time, the stream just went down for those watching it recording. My internet pain. Don't give me a thumbs up, Quinn. Yeah. Wow, this is Am I back? Up. Yeah, refresh. Everyone type in Twitch chat to refresh. Oh, is it going down again? Ugh. This is painful. This is so painful. Our internet is like down right now, I think, Quinn. Is it for you? So cool, man. Yes. Yes. Wi-Fi egg, truly. Truly Wi-Fi egg. Huh? Man, I know we should have got the Wi-Fi egg, but we were here for one day. Like, I didn't the Wi-Fi egg? I've never seen one. Yeah. The other place was the Wi-Fi egg Airbnb. Am I back? It says live. Am I back? Thank you. Okay, and sorry guys for the technical interruptions. It's we'll get it fixed. Yeah, that happened once yesterday after testing for like I don't even know 6 hours. So I'm a little disappointed that it just happened in the middle of lecture. But I'm in South Korea. I'm in Seoul. So we're gonna have to move a little bit faster through bash scripting because I missed it, but we lost some time. So you can run bash scripts by typing bash and then script name.sh. Again, the .sh represents that it's a bash script. We're gonna discuss variables, conditionals, loops, and functions today. So first, we're gonna talk about variables. The way you set variables is name equals data. To use the variable later, you need to put a $ in front of it. This is very important to remember. Very important. Put a $ before you use it. This means don't put spaces around them as well. Don't do name equals data with spaces like this. It's tempting. Don't do it. Is it still up? Okay, it's still up. We're not crashing. So an example of this is, if you want to set maybe your password or a secret variable like an API key, you can do that like this, and then you can echo it using the $. And again, this works in quotes like this as well. Um, we'll talk a little bit about conditionals and then how to use them. For numerical comparisons, you use the .eq and .ne flag, and you basically just use this how you would use equals equals and exclamation point equals for equals and not equals. However, we use those for string comparisons in Bash. So what that looks like is this. So if you wanted some conditional in here, you would essentially use these conditionals in if statements and elif statements like this. If statements have a little bit of an interesting format in Bash, which is to say you have to do if then you chain elifs, and then the last one is else, and of course you don't need a then after the else, but you do need a phi, which is if backwards, which just represents that like the if statement is now done. So kind of remember this structure for if statements when you're using them in Bash. It's if then, elif then, as many elifs as you want, else phi. It could have mean finish. I always thought it was if backwards to, like sort of a mirror situation. But you do now need spaces. So you don't need spaces around the equals, but now you do need spaces around the conditional. So keep that in mind. And let's look at what this actually looks like. So first, we'll talk about our variables. You have num equals 20, string equals hello. Again, referencing these with $ is very important, even in the conditional. Next, we have comparisons. So we say num, which is a number, ne, which is not equal. Remember, we use these ne and eq flags for numerical comparison. Oh, don't tell me it's down again. No! Dude. Okay. For the sake of recording, I'm just going to continue. But I can figure this out afterwards. So we have the then elif statement ladder. So if then elif then else phi. This is so painful. And so this is kind of how you would build kind of a basic script for this. Gosh, did OBS just crash? Oh my God, don't tell me I lost the recording. Oh, OBS didn't crash. I thought I just lost the recording. I was about to be very sad. Okay, continuing for the recording, we have loops. Loops are in the form with these curly braces, start number, dot, dot, ending number, and then you say semicolon do. This is so painful. And then at the end of the do, you have it done. And so what this will do is it'll do something n times. So if we say for I in 1 dot dot 10, do echo, we are on loop I, done. This will print, we are in loop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Failed to connect to server. Cool. Polls. Got to be live to do live polls, believe it or not. Got to be live to do live polls. This is brutal. Brutal. Okay. I'm going to record the end. Yeah, it's just down. Okay, continuing for the lecture. I'm not certain that we're going to do credit for this because I'm not sure that everyone will be able to get attendance easily. But here you go. Here's the following. What will the following print? X equals 5. If x is equal to 5, then x equals 3. Phi, 4I and 1, 3 do echo x. Well, 5 will get replaced to 3. And then we 3 times, 1, 2, 3, we will print x. So it will print 333 because x is, or sorry, it will print xxx because we forgot to put a $ in front of the x. Failed to connect to server. Let's try again. This is so painful. Now let's change it. Instead of x, we're going to do $I. Well, the x doesn't actually matter here, and so we can just look at this bottom part, and it'll print 1, 2, 3. So the next thing that we'll talk about is functions. Functions are declared in the form function name, parentheses, curly brace, and then you do stuff in the middle. And then when you call functions, you just say function name and then value to pass. Functions can access parameters that you give it, these values, by using $1, $2, all the way to however many parameters you're going to pass. So in this function, we can say hi, echo hello, hi, howdy. And so we'll say hi, Eustis, Matt, CS196 students. And because we put the CS196 students in quotes, it's all counted as the third parameter. And so what this will print out, it's back. What? What this will print back is hello, 1, hi. I was just continuing for the recording. I did know that it was down. I know, I'm aware. It'll print hello, Eustis, hi, Matt, howdy, CS196 students. How many parameters can you have? As many as you want. I know you guys are kind of, this is weird because you guys are catching like the back half of this. What I highly suggest is to watch the recording. We did do a poll. Obviously, we didn't actually do a poll, but this is useful information. I think that I'm probably just going to have to give you guys credit for this nonetheless because it's, technical difficulty. I can't blame you guys for not being able to do this. So. Nonetheless, I do want to test the bot, and so if you guys will, just react to the bot when I post it nonetheless, because it's useful to test these things. So if you guys look in Pollbot, you can see the CS196 Pollbot. There's a Pollbot text channel in the Discord. Oh, that's so good, Matt. Oh my gosh, I'm going to use that. There's a Pollbot channel in the Discord, so just react to that. This is a great way for us to test lecture attendance. So please do that. It'll take your reaction away, which is totally normal. You don't need to react afterwards. And again, making sure your name is in the format name netid ensures that this actually gets your netid and gives you attendance. Okay, so thank you all for doing that. So let's look forward a little bit. We're now done with Bash lecture. I encourage you to maybe watch the recording for just those couple minutes that I was out. Bash 2 homework is now assigned. It's due to 9. Of course, we're going to have office hours if you guys have any issues with content anyway. I apologize deeply for the technical difficulties that we had for internet. Hopefully, I'm going to get this fixed as fast as possible. We're having our first social hour in 10 minutes right after this lecture. This will be in the Discord. People will be hanging out, playing games. You guys, I'll be there as well if my internet allows it. And so I highly encourage you to come to those. They're going to be tons of fun. How will attendance be taken? It probably won't be. I think I'm just going to give everyone lecture attendance, Alex. But nonetheless, I do want you to react to poll bots so that we can get a good count of how many people are kind of live versus recorded. We're going to be starting Git next and doing project kickoff kind of in the later half of that. Matt is going to be your primary lecturer for Git, so you guys won't see me until project kickoff, and then you'll see me again for Python. In that time, I will fix my internet. So this is a good timing. Why are you guys lurking? So the big stuff is, do your homework that is now released. At least it will be in 9 minutes. Come to social hours and have a wonderful time.